Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Ryan Olsen of WhiteBone Creations. Sounds like you've had a heck of adventure the last 30 days there, Mr. Ryan. How are you?
I am great, man. I feel plumb spoiled after getting back from Africa, man. I'm awesome.
Yeah, I think we talked right before you were headed to Africa, and you were leaving some red hot fishing to get out there to Africa. I'm curious, before you headed out, did you catch any unbelievable days, and then have you fished since you've gotten back?
Before we left, we fished hard, but I was hoping to get those yellowtail and some of the tuna stuff that's here, and I did not capitalize on that stuff. Although it is still here and still happening. But I did get out last night and went to our classic bass stuff down there, Long Beach Harbor, the break wall, and we didn't have a bang up night. I just fished with a friend, but just felt right to get out. It's hard having two loves. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh
You're
yeah.
torn between hunting and fishing, and these hunting in other countries during their winter and our summers. There's no break anymore, right? It's all hunting and all fishing, and I don't know, man. I'm always torn. I want to do it all full time. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I love both of them, and it's hard to leave. It's great when they don't overlap each other as far as, the prime seasons. It's great when you can catch, prime hunting season and prime fishing, but when they overlap, it's tough. What has been going on in talking to your buddies out there, with the yellowtail and out there off the coast of California and off the coast of northern Mexico? Has it been really good season, or what's the story?
Yeah, it's been an epic season, and again, just conversation with those guys. Lots of friends doing it. April 1st, those tuna showed up down here, and they were off a ways, and they've progressively worked their way closer to San Clemente Island. So no matter where you're coming from, right before you get to San Clemente, there's tuna sitting out there, and they just grew from the 40s, 50s, 70s, hundreds. Now they're in the 250s. These guys are catching tuna that are just unheard of in this water. And then I heard just right here in Huntington, last couple of days, they started having some Dorado show up in the kelp here, in that what we call right off the beach stuff, that 3 to 5 miles offshore right there, and it's happening, and I'm excited to do that. I'm gonna get out tomorrow with some family and see if we can't capitalize on a little of that. But it just hasn't slowed down. Everything I've heard is it's nutty. They're not hard to find. We're just in that transition right now where they're getting hard to catch. We've been poking them for a long time, and they're starting to get a little savvy.
So how much longer will the bite, quote unquote, be on, and then when will it subside?
I think that mid-September is probably when things will peter out. And that's just a guess, but last year that was about what happened. We fished hard right up until the dove season, September 1, came back and got them for about a week, and then it was kind of over.
Gotcha. Then you hang it up, and then it becomes hunting
Oh,
season,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And dude, I'm telling you, just like you said too, it's so hard to try and focus on both of them at the same time. There's just two completely different things. And uh, last night I was trying to manage that, right? From sitting in the back of the truck in South Africa to bouncing around some rough seas. It's just you kind of gotta take a few trips to get your head back in the game.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of fishing up here in Colorado, and we've got some stretches where some of these rivers are getting really, really small, and I've actually purchased a couple rafts this summer, different rafts, kind of specialty rafts for smaller water, and got one boat that's a 9 foot eight, 5 foot wide, 18-inch tube that we've been able to take in really, really low water and, bounce around on the rocks a little bit and catch some, really good days fishing. And, that at the same time, I've got elk hunting on my mind with this elk tag on the beaver, and trying to hike and get in as good a shape as I possibly can. And so some days, I'm rowing for 6 or 8 hours and then hiking for 3 or 4 hours. So it's just been fun, but my mind is going back and forth between, catching fish and where to go and when is prime time to, trying to shoot my bow and get everything ready. So it's just, I guess it's a dilemma that us sportsmen face, right?
All too well, man. Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on you on Instagram and seeing all the stuff you got going on, man. It looks fun. And I was talking to a friend yesterday that was on the Beaver. This buddy of mine, he drew the sportsman's tag. So he can hunt mountain goats anywhere in the state. And he was up there and actually saw some really big bulls. And I said, any information would help, right?
It's been amazing. I've gotten all sorts of responses and people on Instagram and sending me emails and such, hearing that I've got the tag, and it's amazing all the willingness of people. Hey, I saw a big bull over here, and hey, I saw a big bull over there, and it's pretty neat to see that fraternity. Where there's only 7 limited entry tags on the Beaver for elk. Granted, there are spike and cow hunters and archery deer hunters, but it seems as though everybody's willing to tell you where they've seen a big bull. And so from the sounds of it, there's a lot of big bulls running around. So it should be a fun hunt. I'm excited. I should be ready both mentally and physically, and just gonna enjoy it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I want to talk to you about your trip to South Africa, and kind of hear all of the ins and outs of travel and the culture and the hunting and the animals and some of the things that you found to be different, and some of the things you found to be just the same. And so it's going to be a fun talk here. Why don't you tell the listeners about your opportunity to head over there, and kind of where you went, and just kind of walk us through it, and I'll kind of pick away as we go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I had a good friend of mine actually make me an offer on November of last year. Said he was putting together a trip for him and his family to South Africa. He's got a good hunting friend of his that had been over there 13 or 14 times. And, his boys are in that age range of like 26, 24, 22, kind of in that, harder and harder to get them anywhere as a family. And so he'd been planning this for a while, and he just wanted to be able to capture that memory of being over there with his family. And that's what I do, and I'd love the opportunity to go do that. So essentially we made an arrangement, and that's how it went. And we did, I think it was 11 days, 10 or 11 days, in the lower part of the Eastern Cape of South Africa with an outfitter called Blauwkrantz. Big ranch, 100,000 acres, fantastic people. And then we did 7 days further up in the East Cape in a place they call the Karoo, at a place called Tam Safaris. And I met them both at the Safari Club show and at the expo there in Utah, and just a class operation. And only been out of the country a couple places, for me personally, Mexico, and then last year, New Zealand. And I love the travel, but I'm not super versed, right? I haven't been all over the world. I'm not just a loaded passport guy, right? I've only done so much. So there's a little bit of a learning curve in going to these places. And I really didn't know what to expect. I know we talked just briefly, but I've never been the type that had a burning desire to go to Africa. Hunting in North America, maybe only hunting 7 or 8 states here in North America. I know it, I understand it, it helps drive me. And to look at somebody holding an eland or a kudu, it's a beautiful animal, but I don't know enough about it to make me kind of have that desire to go. So, like everybody says, once you go, you're going to want to go back. And man, I could go back tomorrow. My wife would tell you differently now that I've been gone for 18 days, but I could go back tomorrow. So,
So Where did you fly out of?
So I'm down here in Huntington Beach. We're all Orange County guys. So we flew out of LAX and we fly into Atlanta. So that's 4.5 hours there. Um, and that's obviously a domestic flight. And then Atlanta to Johannesburg, which is an international flight, that's 14 and a half, almost 15. That's where you're going to go through customs and all that stuff. And we did travel with guns. My advice is make sure you give yourself plenty of time in all those places, especially with the guns. We can kind of come back to it, but my advice is if you're not hung up on your exact weapon, don't fly with your guns. The outfitters have fantastic weapons. You can pay X amount for, ammunition. You're going to shoot their guns. They're going to get them zeroed before you go. Unless you're looking to have your gun in the trophy shot or something like that, I wouldn't bring it. I just think it's a gigantic hassle. It really was difficult. Um, the gentleman that booked with us, he booked with Gracie Travel. Gracie Travel is like a booking agent down there in South Africa. I think they're based out of Texas. And to be real honest, I think that was probably the best money he spent because when we got into a place we were unfamiliar, they were there holding your hand, walking you through everything from checking bags to going to the hotel. These people were on it. And it's what they do. It's what they do. So it was good to see. So Atlanta to Johannesburg, 14 and a half, 15 hours.
How many movies did you
How
watch?
much? How much? I actually bought a computer because I'm like, oh, I'll just do a bunch of the video editing when I was there. That didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. And you can't sleep on a flight like that real well, right?
Yeah.
It's just fitful, right? It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Everybody's got to pee. And I always joke that there's not enough deodorant on planet Earth to make that plane right? Too many bodies.
Uh-huh.
But it was that part went through painlessly, and we did an overnight in Johannesburg, just because of the time frame. And then the next morning we woke up and we went from Johannesburg to Port Elizabeth. So that was kind of the final flying destination for us. um, we got picked up by the outfitter at the airport and then just drove right to Blaukrans, which means Blue Cliffs. And just pulled into the facility and, just long, 30 some hours of travel when it's all said and done. When we did pull in, super clean facilities, I was just kind of like, this is going to be cool, right? This is going to
So
be.
what were your temperatures like when you landed in Johannesburg? Like, did it feel like where did it feel like you were as far as temperature and like, what did it look like and what have you?
So it's their winter. It kind of felt like our early fall. We're getting crisp mornings, bright sun, but it's still cool. I was I wore merino and a kenai literally the entire trip. It was still pretty cold. We never had any t-shirt type days. And to be real honest with you, when we got into Port Elizabeth, which is a port town, which is the first time I really got to see any outdoors. In Johannesburg, the hotel is in the airport, and you just kind of shuffle your way over there. Um, but when we got to Port Elizabeth, it's a coastal town, so it had neat little buildings and waterfront type hotels and things of that nature. But in the same breath, if you look out into the coast, there's the port. So you've got cranes, containers, fuel liners. It looked like a mini version of Long Beach Harbor to me. And I
I
was,
was gonna say you're probably going, where's the spotted bass at?
I was thinking, how soon before we can fish real quick? But it was rough seas. It wasn't a real mild coastline. It was pretty rough, and that may have been winter. A lot of the guys I talked to about fishing over there didn't really want to talk fishing, just not their interest. They're just hunters and not a lot of crossover. But they did say that they do have a bass that lives up in there. They didn't know the name. I think kind of a cabrillo type, some sort of sea bass in there. But they do have yellowtail and tuna right on that coastline, so really similar to what we have here. But as we started going through there, you kind of come out of that town, and then I believe we headed north to Blaukrantz about 45 minutes, and you go from big city to what appears like instant poverty, right? You're just kind of like, whoa, where did we go? Little tiny tin shacks, and just really, it's one of those kind of you're in a different country take back moments where you're like, man, this is different, right? Very, very
Like dirt roads or paved
dirt
roads?
roads, very little income, no gas of any kind of heating, no running water, just, what would look like the slums. And, I asked a million questions because I'm twofold. I'm trying to document this trip for them, and I'm trying to kind of learn what I'm looking at. And they were just saying, that's kind of, I don't know what the terminology was, but that's our low class of people, or the people that can't afford to be in town, and they just live on the outskirts. And a lot of those people are just helping the factories in town, or staff or whatever. And I said, man, what could you do to help? And they go, nothing. They're completely content and happy there. It'd be like us driving through I don't know. I guess it would be equivalent to us driving through maybe a low rent district of our town. Those people aren't unhappy. That's just what they know. And
Right.
so from there, we were out of town 10 minutes. You see all those little buildings and stuff. It just seemed very, very, for lack of better terms, third world. It wasn't, but that's how it looked, right? Very, very poor. And then we started to get into what was, I guess, reminded me of maybe brushed over hill country like in Texas. So when we got to Blaukrantz, that ranch and that environment is referred to as bushveld. Bushveld, and I think the technical term is subtropical thicket. So it's completely choked with brush. There's little senderos, little lanes, but for the most part, this wasn't classic Africa plains, like where you're looking out across different species of antelope and this and that. It was really just choked cactus and speck boom.
Like South Texas,
Yep.
like some places where you can't see very far and a lot of mesquite, but obviously a different bush, but the similar feel of, like open but super thick.
Yes. Yeah, exactly like that. And you could kind of weed your way through it, but you'd never be effective to stalk something in it. I think Texas sometimes gets kind of a bum rap as far as putting up stands and feeders and all that stuff. That's just those guys being extremely smart and intelligent in how to hunt their game, right?
Right.
We're out
Right.
west, right? We get up with a pair of glasses. I can tell you what's happening for the next 5, 6 miles in any direction. It's
Right.
different, right? They're just smart people. They adapt. Um,
Right.
and
Let's take a quick break right here,
mm,
Ryan. Guys, the title sponsor of my podcast is GoHunt.com Insider, and they're doing a 30-day free trial exclusive for the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. Go to GoHunt.com/J. Scott and click on the blue free trial button and go through the steps. It only takes a couple of minutes. You will be required to provide a credit card, but you will not be charged until after the free 30 days. You can cancel at any time within the first 30 days to prevent being charged. If you have any questions at all, you can email freetrial@gohunt.com and someone from the GoHunt team will promptly respond. This is your opportunity to see what all the buzz is about and the filtering 2.0 system and the application strategies for the Western hunter. PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
so like just the topography there was slow rolling brush, if you will. And we got in there that night. We were a little bit late to do any hunting, and so we met the family that owns and runs Blaukrantz, just incredible people. I was no surprise, but I was very, very, very impressed by the people, the professionalism. Uh, they were just good-hearted. They knew what they're very good at what they do. Um, and that first night, they had made dinner, and I kept tabs of every meal that we had. But the first night was kudu lasagna. So I've never seen a kudu, but I'm going to eat one. And the meat and the foods were unbelievable. I didn't, I guess I didn't do any research before I got down there because I'm just a go with the flow kind of guy. But we ate everything we harvested, everything. Nothing goes to waste. In New Zealand, there's 5 times the amount of game than there is people, so that it all can't get consumed. There's no way around that. But here, they don't let anything go to waste. Uh,
What did the kudu taste like as far as was it a stringy meat? Was it compared to North American game animal, what would you compare it to?
I think if I had to compare it any direction, maybe like a lamb. It was
Okay.
not nothing over there that we ate was a firm meat or a hard meat, and they have also perfected how to eat it. I can tell you this: everything over there, every animal we ate, and I literally ate hartebeest, wildebeest, steenbuck, gemsbuck, and yala, eland. I ate everything. Nothing had that sharp, ruddy mule deer kind of funk to it, and it did none of that stuff. Even our elk, sometimes you'll get an elk that has been pushed hard, or you didn't have a chance to age it, and it's just got a little, gamey is probably not the right word, but it's got a little flavor in it that's just not super palatable. Nothing was like that, and I think part of it is because their animals don't stink. They all laughed at me as soon as we'd shoot something. I just stick my nose right in that critter and smell him. They're like, you smell that animal? I'm like, yeah, I'm curious, right? They don't have any odor. And they're like, no, our animals don't stink. And
Why is that?
I don't know. He said they're antlered animals. Some of these places have fallow deer, and some of them have like that hog deer, that Indian hog deer. And he said they will. He thinks it has to do with being an antlered animal. You know how elk will piss all over themselves in the rut, and they've
Yeah.
got glands. Mule deer and elk, they all have glands on their back legs. Well, most of these animals have glands on their face, and not to get off on that, but those glands varied in scent from coffee grounds to like a packet of sugar. Really, really strange. No musky odor like we're familiar with on our animals. Um, so, and I'm notorious for getting off on that. But so we spent the first night there, super comfortable accommodations. The power is different for our stuff than their stuff. Everything is stubbed out in 220 and has like a big 3-prong adapter. So we did buy little conversion kits for everything. If you're going down there, you may want to make sure you have ways to convert. You can buy it at the airport from 220 to our 110 equipment, charging phones and batteries and stuff like that. Um, but they hunt out of these Land Rovers, Toyota Land Rovers that are like little tiny crew cabs. They would be like a small size truck for us. Um, all right-handed drive, and they all have big benches with stuff in the back where you can sit up and glass, essentially shoot from if you need to, all that stuff. And the first morning, there's 4 shooters, 3 boys, and then the gentleman that brought me with him. And I was going to jump in and film with him first. And we didn't go 200 or 300 yards in the first morning. And I'm like, hey, stop, stop. There's a something. And they just looked at me like,
Who is this guy?
like, what are you doing? There's animals everywhere, you retard, right? And it was like, oh, what is that? And they go, that's a bush buck. I'm like, oh, okay. And we go, look, hey, what's that one? That's an Inyala. That's an eland bull. That's a zebra. And I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't moved the truck. What is going on? And they did have something I probably should say too, just to touch base on, but all of South Africa is fenced. They call it, let me see if I can find the note on it, but it's essentially, it's an enclosure is what they call it. It's a, I don't think of the word, but So this ranch that we're hunting is 100,000 acres, and it's broke into smaller parcels. And when I first got there, I was like, "Hey, they could tell I was, I had reservation with the fenced hunting. Just how it sounds completely wrong, and to me. And so they said, "Hey, let's just talk about it real quick. It's really common with the Americans to, have reservation with it." They said, first and foremost, there's not an animal in Africa that can be held by any fence in Africa. So, like a kudu bull or an eland, which is a 1,200-pound antelope, will literally jump an 8-foot fence. And I didn't quite believe it until I actually saw it. And then all your smaller game will actually go right under it. The warthogs go through and bore holes under all those fencing, and it goes under it. So the fence is kind of twofold. It helps it helps them have those animals in a general boundary. And then it really helps for the poachers that are coming in, because some of these places have a major problem with poaching. It's it's got a different poaching has a different definition there than it does here. If you poach here, every hunter, every anti-hunter, and everybody that loves critters thinks you're the devil and you should never exist. That's just how it is here. Over there, it's an industry. It's what people do. People poach to I'm not saying it's right. It's horrible, but it's just different. The word means something different over there. So the fence just kind of discourages people that have easy access onto the ranch. Anyway, that being said, every piece that we hunted, every piece of land that we hunted within that 100,000 um, was gigantic. The smallest piece that we were in was 20 miles square, so 13,000 acres. Um, and Anyway, by the time we got done having the conversation, I felt a lot better about everything. And the reason I had that reservation is when I started seeing all those animals, I'm like, well, this is crazy. How are they even here? And that night I was able to do a little research too and just kind of look into it. So there's 20 million head of game in South Africa. 16 million head are on private land. So in 2013, the total number of hunted animals equaled 0.002% of the population on those properties in South Africa. So 50 years ago, there was 500,000 head of game in South Africa. So the fact that their model of conservation that has gone to protecting an environment, calling and hunting under numbers, has grown the actual species of animals like we've never seen before. Our North American model of hunting, where everybody owns the animals and we protect for a sustainable future, doesn't really work over there. Twofold, right? We collectively, as sportsmen and even anti hunters, are trying to, we're still, both of us are still trying to do the best for those animals, and we respect that. Over there, it's not like that. You've got to protect them. You've got to put them in these environments. And if you're in South Africa saying you're hunting in a non-fenced environment, you're just between two fences. So it was one of those, kind of swallow your pride, do exactly like they do. It's a beautiful hunt. And that was one of the things I had to get out of my head.
One question I have is, are the people poaching to poach just to kill the animals to say, kind of screw you, or are they actually poaching to, try and bring food back to their families, or are they poaching to, for the hides for money, or what is their purpose of poaching?
I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any vindictive hunting where it's like, I'll show you. I don't think that happens over there. I think when you're dealing with like say the elephant and the rhino, that's an industry. It's a market. It's for sale of the horn and the ivory. That's probably the most brutal. The other animals that are being poached just to feed their family. Maybe
Gotcha.
another great example of that. In the 70s, Kenya banned hunting, right? 85% of their wildlife has been destroyed to poaching, but it's not it's so hard for people to get their head around it. But the animals are gone because the industry left. The hunting industry, the people that were paying money, that were bringing dollars into that environment, went away. So the people are poaching them to feed themselves naturally, right? It's not, you almost can't blame them in a situation like that. You that's what they do. So to
But in other words, in your example there in Kenya, they're basically killing everything inside and eating it, and the animals are not replenishing themselves. Therefore, there's not a balance of give and take. It's just kill, 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 and then they've depleted their resource, and ultimately, maybe one generation of people ate, but the next generation, because there's no sporting dollars there to replenish the animals and maybe conserve the animals, it basically just depletes the whole resource.
Exactly. You're exactly right. So maybe another great way to put it is you hunters, conservationists, people that are involved. You and I are taking care of these animals, right? If that animal has value, he'll be protected, and he'll be I don't,
Preserved.
he'll be essentially preserved. And there's dozens of examples of that in Africa. I mean, literally dozens of them. But if he has no value, I always use the analogy: if you have an Ace Hardware, right, and you bought in this special folding hose, and you paid $20 a piece for them, but nobody bought them, you just can't sell them. It's not worth anything. You're just going to get rid of them. It's just how it works. So if these animals have value, if there's benefits to them, they'll find a way to continue to breed them, watch out for them, sell a select few in order to care for the others. It's just real typical. It's how it goes. And I think that's part of the story that doesn't get told. And I'm going to run off on one little bunny trail real quick here, because it's kind of a hot issue. The whole Cecil the lion thing, right? This doctor shoots this lion, and I can tell you firsthand, the way I heard it, I'd have said the guy screwed up and he was a bad guy and all that stuff. As a hunter, not having enough information, I felt like I got sold down the media path and he did a bad thing. It turned out to be perfectly fine and legit and all that stuff. They just never told that story. So, in reaction to that, the U.S. government, or U.S. Fish and Wildlife, banned the import of big cats into the U.S. market on the 22nd of January. So, and we did that so they would quit hunting them. Well, 80% of large cats that get killed are killed by Americans. Americans hunt them more than the Europeans, more than any other country. So in conversation with these guys, I'm like, so what happens with the cats? Like, what do you guys do if you can't sell them? And they go, we do exactly what anybody do if you can't sell them. You just eliminate them, right? You just take them out. Now it's a nuisance. So where we thought we were trying to help, we literally just went backwards because nobody got the full story or however that went down. And I'm not saying they're over there shooting all their lions, but they're not doing anything special to, to protect them. Um, and it's a sad, sad situation. But that's why I hope through some of this film, I can kind of help tell the reality story from being there. I'm still one trip to Africa. I'm still new. I'm not trying to play the authority, but it was real clear to me how that whole thing worked. And man, it needs to be said, right? It just needs to be said.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. I know,
No.
I know I get off on those, but so that first day when we started hunting, we were chasing an Inyala bull, and in my opinion, it's the prettiest animal we harvested while we were over there. And I don't know, you almost have to see a picture of it. I have to send you a photo, but He looks like,
Describe the horns, describe the body, kind of what you're talking
so
about.
he is considered a spiral horn, and he has, a black, maybe 18 to 24-inch spiral horn that goes straight up. He's kind of a chocolate in color animal, long hair under his chin, longer tail, and then he's got a bunch of white pigment spots on him and some white stripes. This is just a gorgeous animal. Um, in this particular area, they don't have a lot of them, but they are there, and we thought it would be probably one of the more difficult hunts. We allotted a couple days to get them, and we just happened to be traveling through an area and saw a bull standing there. And in the first, literally like 30 minutes, we get in position, make the shot, off it goes, and I'm like, really? Is this how it works in South Africa? You guys just roll up and get it done? And they were laughing because they're like, no, it never works like this, man. And I didn't have time to get the tripod steadied or even, I mean, it just was like, it was a right now thing because he just stepped out in this one section between these two bushes, and you would either A, got him, or, potentially never seen him again.
What does an animal like that weigh?
This Inyala was not too heavy, kind of like maybe like a big mule deer, 260, 280, something like that. And so we got him set up, trophy shots, and because I love the film and video and all that stuff, none of my film stops with the trophy shot, right? I want to see him gut it. I want to see him do all that stuff. I want to see how they do it. But the way they set up for trophy shots, I will definitely take over here and continue to do that. And I know you've seen it a bunch where they'll kind of prop them up on all fours, right? Laying on their belly, balanced on their legs, a lot like how we'll do our deer or, even our elk. But they can get it. They've got it so good to where they can just kind of settle them around and balance the head where it's kind of nose down, square. And I was just crazy impressed by how well those guys did that. It was it was pretty cool to see them position those animals and get them all straight. And again,
Now, do they have a tracker on the vehicle and a professional hunter?
yeah,
And so as soon as that happens, people are just going to work,
yes,
pushing and pulling and dragging and all that stuff?
yeah, and they've been at it a long time, so they really know what to do. They communicate a lot without speaking. But we did have a professional hunter, me the shooter, or I'm sorry, me the videographer, the shooter, and then we had another guest with us in the tracker. Um, and the trackers are just phenomenal people, right? They're great hunters. They do the bulk of the grunt work. They open gates, or it doesn't matter what, they just do everything. They're
What language do they speak?
Hosa. So it sounds like Hosa, Hosa, but I think it's spelled Xhosha. I think I'm probably sure I'm saying that wrong, but it's Hosa is the language. And then
Does the professional hunter speak with the trackers, or do they communicate with sign language, or what? I mean, how do they communicate?
no, there's they speak very, very good with the trackers. So all of our outfitters spoke Hosa and Afrikaans. So Afrikaans is the kind of the I'm probably going to say that wrong too, but kind of the language of the whites. Hosa is kind of the language of the blacks. And because we're so sensitive right now with the whole white and black thing, to hear them say the blacks this or the blacks that, I was like, oh, hopefully he doesn't hear you. And they're like, no, it's not like that. It's very, very, it's so much different than how we are here. To be called black is not offensive, not in any way, and I don't think it should be offensive here either. It's not meant to be, but there's a different culture, even though they work together every day. There's a different kind of language and dialect. But our professional hunter on this trip and our tracker were literally best friends. They went to school together. All the family worked at the lodge. I had a blast with those guys. And they could speak enough English to where I could say, Inyala bull, and he'd be like, yes, or he'd say Inyala female, or Grace Buck, or he could communicate with us really well. It wasn't like it was a struggle, and he was part of the team. In some places, those guys were running the show. They were just really, really good, incredible.
As far as when they started skinning and getting the animal on the ground and gutting and all of that stuff, what did you notice?
None of it happens in the field like we would do. You know, we the only time it would happen is like if you had an animal that was so big and you couldn't load it in the vehicle, they would gut it. But I guess we would all the trucks had winches in them. So when something got down, if we could cut our way to it with a vehicle, we would drive the truck to it, and I mean driving over anything and everything. Those trucks are mean.
What kind of I'm asking so many questions, but what kind of ply tires and like it's interesting to go to places like that and see what people do with their vehicles, and you're like, I never even thought of doing something like
Oh
that.
yeah, and I think too is where I'm always taken back. We have these big old American cushy vehicles. That's what we drive. We have lots of highway, lots of open roads. You don't see a full size vehicle anywhere down there. And so there are those little crew Land Rovers that are all just decked out with all the stuff in the back and winches and stuff. And I didn't really pay attention to the tire, but it was a pretty heavy duty all terrain tire. But those little tiny trucks are 1.5 ton trucks. So
Wow.
our big 3/4 ton pickups are just gigantic, and this thing will hold double the load, and it's super good ride and all that stuff. So, but we would load all those animals and we would go back not too far from the lodge. There was a big cleaning facility where they actually do the gutting, do the skinning, they do all the caping, they actually turn ears and lips, and then they will, depending on what it is, process their own game there, or they'll freeze it or chill it, and a guy from Port Elizabeth will come up and get it, and then they will sell it in town. Nothing at all goes to waste over there. We had killed this Inyala bull, and we were on our way out, and there was a gentleman working on fence. He was just hemming up fence because they have some goats, and we stopped, and they said something in Afrikaans, and we slid out of there, and we gave this guy the guts. And I'm not talking heart, lungs, liver. I'm talking the intestines. And because I got to know, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, he'll eat that. That's his. I'm like, is he excited about that? He's like, he's thrilled about it. I'm like,
Oh
way,
man.
right? So he said he'll take that and he'll flush those intestines and make what we would know as tripe or something. And I was just like, that's awesome, right? That's too cool. And then we'd go back to camp, and the heart, lungs, and liver the staff would take them. They would want to, they would do whatever. There's this tremendous amount of game, right? There's more protein available for everybody than you can imagine. So they can only keep so much there. That's why they sell it in town. So if you go over there and let's just say you buy an animal that costs you $100, that outfitter may make $200 by selling the meat, selling the hide or whatever. Plus, they keep so many people happy and fed, that are just staff people or helpers or people on the road or whatever. It just
Let's take another quick break here. Real game calls featuring the elk reel. Real Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy to master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsmans is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the JScott promo code to receive 10% off any products. Okay, so when you say they go to town and sell some of this stuff, is there like a farmer's market looking type of place or a plaza or where do they go?
We didn't get, I never got to see it, but there's a gentleman that comes up, or several, I don't know, but there's people that come up from Port Elizabeth in like a little pickup, and they just load all these carcasses in the back of their truck. They give X fee to the landowner, right? So, yeah, I don't know if it's a kudu, he may get like $40 or $50 or something like that. And then he'll take it into town, he'll butcher and process it, and then they'll just literally sell it storefront. You could go in anywhere, I mean, any gas station anywhere, and buy a pound of kudu or a pound of impala or
What did it cost, you know?
nothing. Their dollar is the rand, and it's 14 to 1 American. So, I mean, you can't believe how far your dollar went. But I would think, if we were paying American dollars, maybe 15 cents for a pound of kudu.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, everywhere you go down there too, you can buy biltong. And biltong is their version of our beef jerky or our jerky. And they serve it a bunch of different ways. You can buy it different ways where it's like chipped, like it's really small. You can buy it like in a sausage link, or you can buy it in kind of in jerky form like ours. And in the States, jerky's like $25 a pound is kind of the going rate. You could buy a pound of biltong back there for like, I don't know, buck 20, buck 30, something like
Wow.
that,
Wow.
and it's just crazy. So we take all that stuff back, they process it, we go back to camp, have a beautiful lunch. The guys I went with they're 5-star guys. They can adapt in any environment, but they do it upright. And this facility was really nice. And then, just before it was just one hunt after the next. And about day 3, I was so settled in, and I was starting to kind of develop what I would call a game eye, where I could actually identify that's a gemsbuck, or that's a blessbuck, or that's clearly a bushbuck male. And going there, I couldn't have identified or told, probably even pronounced some of the names. So it really, I think that's what gets you into the swing of love in Africa, is you start to kind of identify the spaces that hold these animals and the particular environments that actually hold them. Um, we had rain a couple days in a row, and we woke up in the morning. I'm like, hey, what are we doing today? We had ultimately had 4 bush bucks to harvest, and we hadn't seen very many. And he said it's a really good day for bushbuck, right? It's overcast, everything's wet, and the bushbucks will step out into those clearings and they'll feed. And I just wanted to tell you the story to give you an example of the game numbers. So we kind of pull into this area. I driven by this area every day for 3 or 4 days, and the tracker stops us and he says bushbuck male, not a very big animal, maybe the size of your coos deer.
Are you on foot or are you in the vehicle?
We're on the vehicle now. So most everything, you get on the truck and you kind of drive so you can kind of see, no different than us glassing here, right? We kind of stop, and
Right.
they'll tap the hood of the truck, or they'll have a little whistle or something. So we stop, and in about 200 yards, there's this bushbuck standing there staring at us. And this little bushbuck is just a double tough, mean little antelope. They're kind of elusive in the fact that you don't see them a lot, but they're pretty bold. They're not real spooky. So we get out and kind of try to make a stalk. Well, I'm looking across there going, this thing's going to bolt, man. What are you doing? Just set up and shoot him. And so we sneak down. We get about 90 yards where we get in a good, comfortable position. We make a really nice shot. And I was like, holy cow, man. That's like, how, because I don't know. I was like, man, I would have never got any closer, right? I'd have laid the pack down. I'd have set him, I just
Yeah.
thumped him. And
Sniped them.
yeah, and they just know how these animals react, and I was impressed by that. So we go over. Now, we had driven by this place a bunch, and it was a nice little bush buck, and I started asking questions. I'm like, well, is it just chance that we saw him here? And he's like, no, this is a very much a bush buck area. And I'm like, so have you killed bush bucks here before? And he goes, yeah, we've killed tons of bush bucks here before. And I'm like, well, how old is this bush buck? And he's like, oh, it's about a 9-year-old. I go, it's a 9-year-old bush buck. You've killed a bunch in this one spot. Like, what? I can't get my head around that. Like, if we crawl into a canyon and we see a real nice mule deer or a coon, and we shoot him, I'm not tomorrow going to have a real nice coos deer back in there. It's just that's not how it works, right? Maybe in a year or somebody chasing some does, but for the most part, I've removed that buck for a while. But he said a new bush buck will move back into that environment in like no time, super fast. And there's animals in that area that they've never ever seen, never seen a human that are just literally dying of old age. And it was so very, very difficult for me to get my head around how much game is in this environment. These guys shoot on an average, they shoot 100 kudu bulls a year on this 100,000 acres. And
Wow.
he said by the time hunting season is done, we roughly hunt 200 days a year. By the time it's done, they have to call maybe 400 or 500 kudu cows just to have enough sustainable feed for what's on there. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was still thinking maybe you guys are putting animals on here. He goes, we don't put anything on here. It's born and raised here. It's not it's not in captivity. They're just here. This is where they want to be. This is where they live. And it's different for us. There's just not the amount of game here that there is there. So, by the time we were done with all we had 30 some animals that we took down there in Blaukrantz. And I was going, whoa. And he's like, man, it would have helped us if you had 300 animals laying there, right? It's not what you're used to. And that's what's hard about it. But really, you've seen the amount of game. You see how it goes. We will literally have to go through and call animals in order to get us right.
Is there not predation? I mean, do they not have a lot of predation there?
Very little. So, and the predators that are there, some of the big predators that are there are protected. So, in this particular place in Blaukrantz, there was no lions. They do have leopards on there, but they are protected down there, so they don't shoot them. And the only other one that would really eat some of that game is the caracal. And the caracal is kind of figured to get its way over to more of the livestock, a little easier prey. So very little predation. Because that's what I thought. I said, you guys got bigger, meaner predators, and you got to just go through them. But, the jackals will eat the small stuff. The jackals will get a diker or they'll get something like that. But for the most part, really, it's not they don't have enough predators to do the job that sportsmen actually have to do at this point. Yeah, it was super fun. And so it was kind of bittersweet to leave Blaukrantz because we had such a good relationship with those people. And we took everything from warthogs to eland to gemsbuck. A gemsbuck looks like our oryx, the one you see down there in New Mexico on the military base. And then bushbucks, dikers, blessbuck, wildebeest, blacks and blues, and hartebeest. I'm sure.
What caliber of rifles did your hunters, what were they using mostly?
So the three boys were all shooting a 25-06 with a 100-grain bullet, which was very effective. It worked good. I personally would tell you it's a little bit light if you're going to go over there and shoot anything more than, say, an Inyala bull. And real quick, because you probably like that too, but so over there you have bulls and cows and rams and ewes. And the distinction is if an animal is 70 kilos or greater, he's a cow and a bull. If he's 70 kilos or less, he's a ram and a ewe. The only difference is the Inyala. So the Inyala male is a bull and the Inyala female is a ewe. Fun facts from Africa.
That had to take a little while to get used to.
It did because it would, I would say male or female because I still would. I'm not used to calling it a ram or a ewe. And but when we started looking at some of the smaller animals, you could hear them say springbuck ram, or springbuck ram, and then I would hear, it's a eland bull. I'm like, what draws the line? Like, where is it at? And one of the gals that was working there got me up to speed on that. And
70 kilos is how many pounds?
70 kilos. Here, I got this killer little app. I'll tell you right now. It's called. You ever use the Convert app? I
No.
was always at, it's actually called Convert. I use it to find out what like acres is equal to hectares and miles,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So, uh, what were we just saying?
70 kilos.
Kilos. So it'd be measurement of not volume, length, speed. No, I think it's 1.1 or something like that. I'm getting off track because apparently my brain's so small I can't do two things at one time. But that was kind of neat. And from there, from that point there in Blaukranz, we traveled into the. Oh, yeah, I got to tell you one other quick story. So, the owner of Blaukranz, his name's Arthur Rudman, him and his wife Trinette, they had a doctor friend that came down that used to live next to him. He now lives on the outskirts of Kruger National Park. And I was saying, they have to call a tremendous amount of animals. So his buddy annually comes down and visits with him every year. And he was going to have him call 6 Impala, and he was going to keep the meat. And then he said, "Hey, we've got a kudu cow with horns that we've never seen, but it's in this general area. If you see her, we need to get her taken out of there, right? She's got horns. It's just weird." So nobody's ever seen this thing alive. Got trail cam photos of it, and he shows up the first day, and it's the first kudu that steps out, and he shoots this kudu cow. Well, we bring it back to the skinning section. We're all kind of there, and I'm just completely and totally blown away by this animal. So you may have seen on Instagram, but this cow has got a spiraled horn. No, let me rephrase. Kudus normally have like a spiral horn that goes up. This thing's like a mouflon sheep where they come out of her head, down around, and then up underneath her chin. And the horn was actually grown into the bottom of her chin 3 or 4 inches. And technically, if you could score a female, it would be the new world record kudu. So it had a 58-inch right horn and a 55-inch left horn, and she wouldn't have made it much longer. She was pretty run down. Her condition was pretty poor, and they wound up harvesting it. And Arthur had been on that place for 70 years. He says it's the first one he's ever seen. And when we got to, kind of gutting and cleaning on it, we found that, she did have like a uterus, and then she had some testicles, essentially having both mommy and daddy parts. And it was just this crazy hermaphrodite freak in nature. And
I'm looking at the photo right now on Instagram. So those horns are not supposed to be curled like that.
no, no,
They're supposed to be
they
straight.
go straight and they spiral straight up.
That's an unbelievable trophy. That's amazing. 55-inch, 58-inch right horn.
Yeah. And I was going, guys, I, I'm sorry to be all crazy right now, but this is really, really, really special. So I was able to grab some film, kind of the whole process. It's a business down there. When when something gets the ground, they take care of the meat and all that stuff. And so I'm kind of in the shuffle trying to, get some footage, but just a really neat experience to have been there when that thing hit the ground. I told him, I said, it's a huge honor for me to be here to actually see this because it is so very rare. And then when they finally did take the hide off, the ear off, I said, I really want to get some photos. It doesn't do it justice with it on the head, but really, really, really neat animal.
Yeah, it looks like an amazing animal. So that's crazy looking. And that's the first one that he saw, and boom, he shot it.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
nobody's ever seen it. I kept calling him the king of the kudu, and he just ate it up. It was fun. What would you think if you're on a sheep hunt and that thing strolled out?
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
what?
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Quick question for you. Looks like, and for the listeners out there, go to WhiteBone Creations on Instagram to see these photos. It looks like a lot of your crew was wearing Kuyu. I'm curious how the Kuyu Gators and just how your Kuyu gear held up there.
It was great. I was kind of surprised to see that there was almost no outfitters over there wearing Kuyu. So I'm gonna actually fix that. I'll get with Jason and see if we can't get those guys hooked up. But a lot of those guys are wearing it because maybe that's another great piece to touch on. But I didn't really know what we were getting into over there, and I just didn't. it wasn't my place to start calling around and asking as the camera guy. So I knew it was going to be winter, and I knew I was going hunting. So I took all my cold weather gear from the Super Down and the Kenais and all my merino. I brought like 5 or 6 pairs of gloves and beanies, and I just kind of threw it all in there because you know how well the Kudu packs. It's easy. And then I threw a 6,000 Ultra Day Pack, knives, gloves, first aid kits, Nalgene bottles, and I can tell you right now, you don't ever need to bring a pack there. You don't ever need to bring a knife. You don't ever need any of that stuff because it's just you just won't have the opportunity to use it in South Africa in these events. So I hauled around a lot of gear I didn't need. But the boys didn't bring hardly any cold weather gear. So I was fortunate in the fact that I had so many extra everything, right? So one of them had a Kenai, one of them had a Peloton, and they wore that because they didn't have any warm gear. And it was really good. I have fallen in love with the Gator. It was actually the very first Kuyu piece I bought like 4 years ago.
The Yukon Gator.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It was I don't even think they make that particular one anymore, but you are gonna kick through a bunch of brush and a bunch of cactus, down in the Eastern Cape, tons of it. And I have an issue where I kick through sage or whatever, and I tend to roll my pants. They get twisted up at the bottom, and the Gator to me just keeps me all together, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even with the rain and sitting on the back of that truck, we were constantly in rain, and I did bring a set of Chugach and we did wear it, but the Gator for me was great, and it was really really good. I think if you were in the summer, is it the Tiburon? Is that
Yeah.
I just think it'd be the best piece. Everything does have a thorn, so I think you need to be aware of that. If
Sounds like Southern Arizona to
It
me.
does, man. Everything pulls back, right? Everything pulls back. The bushes we were hunting in and around was speck boom. That's the number one forage. It's a succulent. They eat the leaf and the stalk and everything. And then there was a lot of acacia and plumwood, and that acacia looks like it has a huge white thorn, and then cactus. So as to where Kuyu's fantastic ultralight mountain clothing, it's not the greatest for pushing brush down there. I would say great on your top gear. On the bottom stuff, maybe have a gator or have a brush pushing pant or something. But it all worked out good. I didn't wind up tearing anything, or I loved it.